Hello, everybody, and welcome back to yet another gay podcast by the Applebox Chronicles. My name is Peyton Buto,
And I'm Adrian Thomas.
and today on the ABCs, if you couldn't tell already, we are taking you from A to Z on the films of Gregg Araki, specifically the Teen Apocalypse Trilogy, released into the Criterion Collection last year. This is a new segment we are calling Out of the Closet, and the concept is very simple. We are taking Criterion movies that we own in our personal collections that we purchase blindly without having seen the movies beforehand. We watch them, and then we're just going to give you our reactions, our reviews, and how we first came across these filmmakers. If you're watching this on YouTube, we are going to look at our phones a few times, and that's just because that's where our notes are. Had some technical difficulties today, so we have to do it on here. Anyway, Adrian, what was your introduction to Gregg Araki as a filmmaker?
Well, I kind of knew about Gregg Araki for several years, and I was kind of interested in what it was all about. I knew that he was kind of like a queer filmmaker who had a very interesting style, but that's really all I knew. And then I saw Mysterious Skin during quarantine with my roommate Reed, and we both were like, "This is crazy. This is an amazing film, but it's also very, very weird and radical and interesting." And so that was my first introduction to Gregg Araki, was 5 years ago watching that. And then Criterion released this trilogy, and I know you were very excited for it to come out because you really wanted to watch his stuff. So watching this trilogy, I now get to see a bit more of his filmography and kind of understand what he's trying to do. And I think this really does showcase like Gregg Araki's style and what he's really able to show.
Yeah, this is definitely a great start, I would say. I mean, as someone who is starting off, actually, I don't know if this was not my first Gregg Araki experience. My first Gregg Araki experience was like the other month when you had me watch Smiley Face.
That's
we
right.
Put that on.
Yeah, Smiley Face was actually my second Gregg Araki film that I saw as well. And the reason why we watched it was because Vinegar Syndrome, which is another Blu-ray distributor, they released that. And since I was a subscriber to it, I wanted to check it out. And it's really funny. It's not a part of this trilogy, but if you get a chance, check it out. It's a really funny stoner comedy.
Yes, it is a really fun film. Very different from these movies. Yeah, I was first introduced to Gregg Araki when I saw an interview with who I believe to be a major contemporary filmmaker, especially in the queer cinema scene, Jane Schoenbrunn, and their film I Saw the TV Glow is one of my favorite movies of the decade so far, and they said in an interview that Gregg Araki was someone that they were a big fan of, and so that immediately sparked my interest to watch his films. So I bought this. More accurately, I was gifted this for Christmas. Actually, my grandmother got this for me.
Nice.
Which she probably has no idea what these movies are about. And if you're listening to this, Grandma, you're about to find out. That might have been a mistake. So yeah, let's start with the first film here. Let's just get right into it. Totally effed up, or totally fucked up if you're nasty. This is the first film in the trilogy, and I think it's both of our least favorite.
Of the trilogy, yeah.
What do you think about this one?
Well, I think we had the misfortune of watching them in kind of different orders. We watched The Doom Generation first, then we watched Nowhere, then we watched Totally Effed Up. But Totally Effed Up is actually the first movie of, I guess, the trilogy to come out chronologically.
Correct.
And it is a very good movie. It really showcases what Gregg Araki is really known for: his style, his dialogue, his themes on being a gay man and the queer community. The thing about it is that it's just not as focused. It's not like the full Gregg Araki experience for me. We were talking about it. It's kind of like the germ of what he would become, and I think it's a really good like starting off point if you want to get into his films. He did do a few films beforehand, but this is also I think a good start, because it's also uh, I think his first uh, I believe this was his first time working with James Duval, who would be in all three of these films.
I think that might be right.
Yeah, and it's just kind of a good starting off point, I think.
Yeah, I think this is a really good movie. I don't dislike it. I think it's entertaining. I think it's tonally just very consistent with the trilogy. Like you said, kind of the germ, the start of everything. And we did have the misfortune of watching this one last. Probably not smart on our end. But I actually do think we watch these in the order that we like them the most, which is cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one's it's just not that memorable to me.
Same.
Structurally less appealing. It's more like vignetted, I guess, and it's still got that teen angst, that punk vibe, but the production value of the trilogy increases in the later films, and it becomes way more interesting. And I think Gregg Araki's able to kind of make these films feel otherworldly in a better way in these other two movies.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about this movie is that it's where in his later films he's not as um pointed with what he's trying to say, whereas in this movie it's very obviously about, the AIDS epidemic and like gay suicide, and he's really trying to focus on that nihilistic gay experience.
Yeah, I mean, all three of these films are essentially gay nihilistic teens.
Yes.
That's what they're about, and it's kind of they're living in this world that they don't feel they fit into. A lot of themes of alienation in these films, a lot of things that are critical of how society perceives queerness, and obviously in the '90s, especially, I think this was something that was really present for the gay community, and it's still present today. Like, these films are still relevant for sure, but you can kind of see why he chose to make these movies in a contemporary sense.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all we thought about Totally Effed Up. It was just kind of like, all right. At
Yeah.
least compared to the other two movies, we're like, yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, I would agree with that one, but compared to the other two movies, definitely the outlier for me. But these other two, I actually really love both of these. So the next one is the Doom Generation. I think we agreed this was our favorite.
Yeah.
And for me, this one just has the most entertaining kind of structure. It's kind of a road trip movie through hell following this trio of teenagers. The interesting thing about this one is that at the beginning of the film, usually there's like a title card that says like, it's another gay movie by Gregg Araki, which I referenced at the beginning of this episode. But in this one, it says a heterosexual film by Gregg Araki. And I think this movie is supposed to encapsulate the feeling of being in a heteronormative world as a gay person, as a queer person, and how it's a kind of hell. And it's kind of, you're constantly being told that you're someone you're not, or having to hide who you are. And so in this movie, it's not overtly like homoerotic, but it sort of is. It's a very thinly veiled subtext of homoeroticism between the two male characters, because there's two male characters and there's a female character, and they're kind of on this like little road trip together. And the woman character is very beautiful, and they, I think, use her sex appeal, or Gregg Araki's using her sex appeal as kind of a way to like bridge these two guys together. And there's some very clever moments of like blocking and things that imply that the two male characters are actually interested in each other, but they can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, there's well, like you said, there was a producer on this movie that didn't think that if it was so like outwardly queer, then people would want to watch the movie.
Yeah, I think that was the case. I read a quote the other day that when I was doing some research on this one. Producer Jim Stark, he was able to give Gregg Araki a little more resources to make this movie the way it is, and he was able to shoot on 35 millimeter because of it, and all this fun stuff. But I think he did say something about like, oh well, if it's so overtly queer, like it's not going to do as well, so you shouldn't make it that way. And Gregg Araki was like, okay, yeah, I'll make a heterosexual film, but it's going to be the gayest heterosexual film you've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much so that when I watched it, it just came natural to me to think that it's a bi movie. It's a kind of, they all like each other. They're all interested in each
Right.
other. And it's not like guy, guy, girl, girl. It's more just like they all are on the spectrum somehow. And they honestly don't really hide it all that much. Like, it's very, when the two guys are talking, it's very obvious that they're really into each other.
There's also a great use of music in this movie. There's a Nine Inch Nails song at the beginning. I think Gregg Araki uses music pretty well in these movies.
Yeah, especially in Nowhere, there's a lot of drops in that. But he was also saying on one of the supplements on this movie, he talks to Richard Linklater, and I think in terms of the indie scene, they were very they kind of went through the same motions in some ways. Like Totally Effed Up and Slackers are very similar to me because they're all kind of vignetted, very low budget, and kind of showcasing what those directors want to accomplish later on in their careers. And they both utilize music in their movies, I mean, very specifically for their movies. Like, they'll write two very specific music songs and albums. And I think when they were doing Doom Generation, Gregg Araki said that he wanted kind of shooting for the moon with this one. He wanted to have like a brand new Nine Inch Nails, like double platinum,
I think he said like double
LP to be associated with the film, which obviously didn't happen. But he was able to get a song from Nine Inch Nails to be in the movie.
Hey,
so.
reach for the moon, you'll fall to the stars, or whatever they say.
I think it's reach for the stars, but you could hit the moon, something like that.
It's something like that.
Bad metaphor, I guess. Or
like reach for the stars, you'll land among the clouds, something like that.
So yeah, we might take that out. Who knows?
I don't think we should take it out. I think we should just whatever. Anyway, another thing about this is like this is stylistically just like so refined. The Doom Generation is pretty complete feeling in terms of a Gregg Araki film. You've got like great performances. The dialogue is so witty and unique. The visuals, the color palette, and the production design is great. Parker Posey just randomly pops in, and that's the most Gregg Araki thing I think you can get, is just a random appearance from an actor like Parker Posey just in the movie. And there's a similar cameo in a movie called Nowhere, which is the next movie that we're talking about.
Yeah.
This film is kind of, I think, just a film ultimately about the alienation of being queer, and it's called the Teen Apocalypse Trilogy. So everything about it is apocalyptic. Everyone's nihilistic. Everyone's like, why should we care? Everything's fucked up. Everything's weird. And I think that is the core of this trilogy, is like, he wanted to make movies for people that felt like the world around them wasn't normal and everyone else was just accepting it, and so they felt crazy. And therefore you kind of turn to a more nihilistic point of view, because it's like, well, what the fuck is the point of all this?
Well, I also want to mention, this is something that our roommate and friend Reed said, was that you could definitely tell that these are the kids of hippies because they have the same kind of mentality of like, the government's not doing anything for us. We're constantly being oppressed because we're different, and they have no sense of optimism in the world, because everything's always trying to oppress them and like break them down, like with AIDS and just being ostracized just for being queer. They have no reason to feel anything other than kind of nihilistic, and everything's like
Everything's
near the
totally
end.
fucked up.
Yeah.
Everything's totally fucked up. Their generation is doomed, and they belong nowhere.
It's actually I thought about this from the movie Dazed and Confused, directed by Richard Linklater, where one of the characters are talking about decades and how each other decade is a good decade. So the 60s were good, the 70s are bad, the 80s might be great, and then the 90s are going to suck. And this is in the 90s, and it's kind of like they had this opinion that, this period is going to it really sucks, because they kind of go through that cycle of kind of being on, I don't know, it's like every other generation thinks that they're having it bad, and it's like I think everybody goes through that, but the world has to catch up.
Yeah, it's like this there's a line in the film that really stuck with me, which is like, I'm only 18 years old and I'm totally doomed. Like
Yeah.
this feeling of like I'm in this awkward stage of my life. I don't know where I belong, and like another thing he says is, I feel like my generation is going to witness the end of everything.
Yeah.
Like I'm just gonna see the world crumble. In this movie, there's an alien invasion happening. It's very peripheral, but it is something that I think speaks even further to the themes of alienation and the way that these characters feel. It's like both literal and metaphorical in that way, which I think is really fun. It also feeds into the whole apocalypse idea, like everything's on the verge of apocalypse. Production design in this one, again, really good. Gregg Araki said he wanted to make something that is so subjective, like the world kind of looks how the characters feel it looks. There's a lot of black and white imagery, like they're trapped in kind of this black and white, like checkered reality where they can't be fluid or gray in any way.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of religious imagery and subtext and text in this movie. Like there's this crazy guy on the TV that's like 1-800-GO-JESUS. It's like a car salesman ad, but for the church.
Yeah.
And that's something he's tackling in this film pretty well, I think, is the way that people use religion to make sense of the fucked up world they're living in, and the way that that's kind of projected onto the youth, and like these gay kids, they just don't. Well, they're not happy with that. They can't vibe with that.
Yeah, it's very hypocritical. It's like the gays are, the Christians are usually saying, the gays are bad. They'll turn your children gay. They're bad for the community. It's not in the Bible, all that kind of stuff. But then you look at Christianity and how they are constantly trying to put their religion onto people, and it's almost like you think that the queer community is trying to push agendas, but it's really the other way around. It's the religion that's trying to push the agenda and making it worse for the people that feel like they can't really do anything right with their lives, because whatever they feel or however they feel sexually is obstructing them from living a good life. But religion will kind of guilt them into thinking that they're bad people. And so even if they are actually put through terrible situations, like there's a girl in this movie that gets assaulted, and she feels that it was her fault, almost like she feels that she's not good enough. Like even in the movie, before she's assaulted, she's, I guess, bulimic because she throws up the food that she just ate. And in the end, this is a little bit of a spoiler, she commits suicide because of how guilty she feels about herself. And I don't even think she's a gay. Is she a gay character? I don't believe so.
I can't recall.
But even for people who are not gay or feel like they're on the queer spectrum could even feel guilt through just plain old, sexual relations.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I think he's making movies for weirdos, and that's great. I'm always down for that. And another thing, this movie kind of reminded me of Dazed and Confused, directed by Richard Linklater, because it's like one day in the life of like all these teens. It's not really like too plotty, and it
it's like
all culminates at this party where there's a fight. It's different, but it's like a queer, like bizarro Dazed and Confused in a way.
It's like a hangout movie. It's
It's
like,
a hangout movie.
Honestly, all three of these feel like they're just kind of like hangout movies. I think Doom Generation a little less so, but what I love about Doom Generation is that it goes through the same motions constantly. There's always something sexual that happens and something violent that happens. Then they argue. Then something sexual happens again. Then something violent happens again, and then they argue, and that happens like 3 times around. So it's very like you kind of get the motions of what the movie's doing. But by making the story very simple like that, he could expand out his stylistic approach to it, like the dialogue, the production design, the camera work. It's all, and that's why I like that movie the best, because he could really hone in on what he's trying to do visually and thematically without overcomplicating the script story-wise.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree, and I think that's a really good point. I truly love Doom Generation Nowhere. They're like neck and neck for me, but I do agree Doom Generation is my preference as well.
Yeah, Nowhere I think gets that. I don't think it's a huge problem, but in terms of pacing, you don't really know where the movie's kind of going. So it even though it's very much you're kind of back and forth with a lot of very different characters. You're going through the day with them, seeing what's going on. You don't really get the sense of where the story is going. And some characters, some plot lines you do, but overall, it's kind of a big just ensemble of people doing a bunch of weird stuff, and it's just fun to watch.
Absolutely. I think that these films have definitely made an impact on quite a few people. I actually know of some people in my online circle that have said that like Nowhere is their favorite movie, and it's like changed their life. I know a guy that has like a tattoo of this movie.
That's cool.
On Letterboxd, which is really cool.
What's it of?
I forget exactly. It might be like the I'm so sorry if I'm wrong about this, but it might be like the little like lizard guy with the gun or something.
It's one of the aliens.
Yeah, there's like a kind of a cult community for
Nowhere.
For Nowhere is the one that I think I see people talk the highest of out of the 3.
Yeah, I think Gregg Araki is almost like you could see the people that love him the same way that people love David Lynch. Like, yeah. It's kind of like that little niche community of people that really love their films and their style and how they approach movie making.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're both so great, and they're both so bizarre in a wonderful way. And I especially want to talk about the endings to these 2 movies.
Yeah.
The Doom Generation, another reason why it's my favorite, it goes the darkest. The absolute darkest out of the 3. It is actually insane.
It gets really brutal, really gory, and really messed up. Totally effed up.
Yeah, by the end of the movie, and you wouldn't really expect it. It kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
You could make so many little jokes like that about
I love
these
the
titles.
names of these movies.
Yeah.
You could just tell that it's by this like kind of punk director that's like, F these guys. I'm going to make what I want. And it's very like Doom Generation.
Yeah. One thing I like about Totally Effed Up is the little interlude kind of title cards that come up. Like there's one that says The Fall of Stupid Fucking Western Civilization. I like that.
Yeah.
Dude's wearing a shirt that says I Blame Society. Like, just so many fun moments in terms of the costumes and the production and just all the gags. It's great.
It's very punk, and I really like it for that.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, we love two of these films, and you were kind of so on Totally Effed Up.
Yeah, I didn't mind it. I liked it, but like just in comparison to the two other films, I'm like it's obviously the more inferior film.
I agree with that, but I also think it's a great movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, so great trilogy. To start off this segment with, let's talk a little bit about these transfers,
Yeah.
just how they look. I think Doom Generation kind of blew me away with how well the 4K looked, and the colors just pop in that movie so much. The reds and the blues. There's a lot of American color, like American flag imagery.
Well, yeah, in Doom Generation, even all three of the characters are named off of the colors of the American flag, red,
That's
white,
right.
and blue.
That's right.
And a lot of themes in that movie about how, America is kind of crumbling and it's not. There's neo-Nazis in that movie that do horrible things in it. And another thing about all three of these movies is that it's trying to say, hey, this is what the world is like. This is what's gonna happen to the world. And again, people don't listen to what the creatives and the passionate people out there are saying.
Yeah.
And look at the world now again. Nazis full blown in America. It's crazy.
And we just talked about this with Star Wars: Revenge of the Sith as well. It's crazy how art does that, and nobody really listens. And then you come back several decades later, and you're like, "Huh, that's what they were trying to warn us about."
Yeah.
The packaging too. I have it right here. I'll put up a little picture here. So the packaging too is pretty good. This is the set right here. I've got an image up right now so you can see it. I like this.
Yeah.
It comes with a pretty cool booklet as well.
Yeah. I believe it comes with several supplements. Like, for instance, we talked about the one where he has Gregg Araki has a conversation with Richard Linklater, and there's another conversation with the producer Gregg Araki and James Duvall about just the creation of all those films and the stylistic choices that they made. There's a few, I think there's a video essay on there as well. And
there's a video documentary on the production design of the movies, the visual style, and then there's also the commentaries on all three.
So yeah, it's pretty loaded with a bunch of cool stuff in there.
And we are not sponsored, by the way.
No,
this is just a little like appreciation.
Yeah, it's kind of like our little Criterion closet, but way more in depth with each film.
Something that I like about this is like all of the little, like they don't really waste any space on this. Like at the top it says I Blame Society.
Mm-hmm.
And then even on the inside, I obviously can't show it, but on the inside of this sleeve where the movies go, it like has the words more teen angst. And then I can't even read what the other one says. But
yeah, Criterion,
really cool.
Especially when they do these like digibook type packaging, they really go all out for them. So it's a really good package. And the only thing is, Totally Effed Up is on a Blu-ray instead of a 4K, which if you care or not, I don't think it would do that much of a difference because that movie was shot on 16 millimeter as opposed to the 35 millimeter that the two other movies were shot on.
Yeah, it makes sense why they would do that and not really bother with that one. But I was a little surprised when I opened it up and I was like, oh, it's only two of them? That's kind of, you ripped me off. What the fuck? But they all look good. Yep. Obviously, Criterion never really makes a bad looking transfer. And when they do, like when Citizen Kane came out, when they do make a mistake, they tell you, hey, if you smash your disc, we'll send you a new one. And I did that on video. It was really fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, these are great films. Really fun trilogy to go through. I want to see Mysterious Skin because I still haven't seen that one.
I think one of the... I haven't seen it in 5 years, so my opinions might change. I think for the better, because I do remember really, really liking that movie. So yeah, we gotta visit that movie one of these days.
Maybe we'll touch back on Gregg Araki in the future with some more of his films. But as for this episode, I feel like that about wraps it up.
Yeah.
Kind of a shorter one. This is kind of what you can expect from the Out of the Closet segment when we're talking about Criterion movies. Something we can do every once in a while just to check in on what we've been collecting and buying. So thank you guys for listening to this one, and watch these movies.
Yeah.
These are great movies.
Yeah, well, and not just these movies, but watch any movie by Gregg Araki. I haven't seen one that hasn't been good so far.
Yeah, great filmmaker, really unique voice in cinema. I am excited to see his new movie.
Oh, yeah, he does have a new movie coming out. Charlie XCX is in it.
It's called I Want Your Sex.
Yes.
Doesn't it have...
Cooper Hoffman's in it,
Yes.
son of Philip Seymour Hoffman. He's also in Licorice Pizza, so I'm excited to see what he does next. There was a bunch of other actors in there that I can't remember but I'm super excited to see what he does in, now. Like, a new movie by Gregg Araki is really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. That's like seeing a new movie by, I don't know, fucking... I don't know. There's like some kind of indie filmmaker just coming back. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember when his last film was, but it's exciting.
Yeah. So
maybe he's still got it.
I'm sure he does. Like,
Yeah.
he's. I think if he could still put out his voice, his visual style, I think it'll probably be great.
And we need more modern audiences to be exposed to that, and the way to do that is to cast Charlie XCX.
Yes, I don't think that. Also, the thing is, I don't think Charlie XCX would be in anything bad.
And also, I mean, the spine for this is brat colored.
Is it real? Yeah.
So, I mean, they're asking for it. Anyway, anything else you want to say about these films?
No, I like them a lot. Shoot, maybe I'll get my own copy of it one of these days along the line, but yeah, really good. I highly recommend that you check it out. They should also, if you don't want to buy like the physical copy, I'm pretty sure it's on Criterion Channel, which is the Criterion subscription that you could get.
Well,
but, yeah.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. Please don't forget to follow our socials. All the links are in the description no matter where you're watching this. If you're watching it on YouTube, watch it on Spotify for the final cut. If you're watching it on Spotify, go check out the YouTube version for like a longer version with more filler words, but we can look at the packaging together, and that's really fun. Thank you guys so much for listening. Once again, I have been Peyton.
And I've been Adrian.
And we will see you next time on the Apple Box.
All right, bye.